graphing utility or computer augmented system to plot the graphs of x sub 1 of t and x sub 2 of t in the same coordinate plane. Now, my question to you is, what's x sub 1 of t and x sub 2 of t? How are we going to isolate them? Okay, well, let's see. So this is the first solution, this is the second solution, but these are not x sub 1 and x sub 2. Remember that these are vectors. So if you look at, well, I don't have it there. So if you think about this, this is like having C1 sol, negative C1 sol here, times e to the negative 1 over 25 times t, plus the top part of this as well, with the top entry of this, which is the x1, and x2 is at the bottom. So to isolate these, writing the single solutions. Well, these are not solutions. The single salt functions. So, x sub 1 of t, that's the amount of salt in tank A, is going to be C1 sol multiplied by the top part. So that's going to be negative 1 times C sol times the exponent of negative 1 over 25 times t plus we're going to have C2 sol times 1/2 right here times the exponent of negative 1 over 100 times t. And I don't want this to, actually I want it to output so that you can see it. And now for x sub 2 of t, that's the amount of salt in tank B. That's going to be C1 sol times 1, so just C1 sol times, remember that C1 sol is the solution to this. We could write just the solution of that, but this way is better because we could have a code that we could change the numbers and still have something useful. And here we have exponent of negative 1 over 25 all multiplied by t, and then we're going to have C2 sol multiplied by, well, the bottom here we only have a 1, so we really don't need to write it, and then times the exponent of negative 1 over 100 times t. And I want that to output 2. So let me just check that we did a multiplication right. Here we should have negative C1 sol times exponent of negative 1 over 25 times t plus C2 sol times 1/2 times the exponent of negative 1 over 100 times t. Here we should have C1 sol times 1 times the exponent of negative 1 over 25 times t plus C2 sol times 1 times exponent of negative 1 over 100 t. Now we can do our plot work. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, the fplot command in Matlab is very useful for this because it plots functions, and we want to put an interval. The interval of plotting will be from 0 to 500. I'll write, hold on, what does this mean? It means that whatever command I write after this is going to be added to this picture. So since I want to plot the other function on top of that same graph, I'm going to rewrite fplot, but I know that that fplot is going to execute on top of the previous fplot. Then I want to x label, and remember that x is time, which is in minute, if you remember. And then the y label is the amount of salt, and that is in pounds. Now we can write hold off, which means that whatever comes after this is not going to be associated with this fplot again. And now I can just press Control Enter. I press Control Enter, and I see if I get a graph, and I get this very nice graph over here. This is the graph of our two amounts of salt. Now, we should have also labeled which one was which. But maybe next time, because I actually don't remember how to do that. So that was part C. Now suppose the system is to be turned off when the number of pounds of salt in tank B equals that in tank A. Use a root finding application or a calculator to approximate that time. So we want the amount of A to be equal to the amount of salt in B. So that's going to be right here. And we get that our y is about 34.62. Remember that our x. Remember that our x is time in minutes, so that's 34.6 minutes. And so we have answered part D. And this is the end of the series for this problem 15. I hope you liked it, and I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you next time.